Welcome to Beyond BIM. Many of us are used to using purpose-ready BIM solutions from the market, but there is a quieter revolution going on amongst the developers in the IT world, and this is the transition into microservices software architecture. The central idea behind microservices is that applications become much easier to build and maintain when they're broken down into smaller constituent parts. Each component is continuously developed and separately maintained, in contrast to the traditional monolithic applications, which are all developed as one single piece. Today's episode will discuss how microservices can be used for extending and automating BIM solutions. I have the pleasure of talking to Roef, also sometimes referred to as the BIM Captain from Rotterdam, Netherlands. His career once started as a contractor where he prepared tenders and worked as a superintendent. He then learned how to work with CAD and at an international engineering firm even started programming himself. Currently at TNO, the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research, he is responsible for the Digitalisation Roadmap, buildings and infrastructure. And he is involved in the development of strategic, disruptive technologies such as linked data, artificial intelligence, digital twins, and most importantly, BIM bots. Without further ado, let's hear what Rob has to say on BIM bots, microservices, artificial intelligence, and linked data.
I studied civil engineering, and I soon discovered that the construction world would be more beneficial if there was a better cooperation. So I started at a contractor, and then I moved to an engineering agency, start working with, I think, AutoCAD 2. I don't know, something. And at that time, already people needed better cooperation. Then I started to develop CAD software, support it, and sell it. And, well, of course, we know what happened with CAD. It grew into BIM. And, well, if you, like I said, better cooperation, in my opinion, needs open BIM, transparent working methods, and open standards. So I'm actually not a researcher, but I've been active now as a business developer at the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research, TNO, since April last year. And I co-manage the direction of the Digitalisation Roadmap. And from the beginning of this year, the board decided to have a cluster named Digitalization within our business unit. And well, I can lead that with a fantastic team.
With your work at TNO, you've talked about BIM bots. Are you able to share with us what exactly is a BIM bot and how does that apply in practice?
Okay, well, we have to do a step back then, I guess, because an engineer or a designer, they create an open BIM dataset using BIM All3 software, right? And those datasets need to be shared with team members, internal and external, and partners, of course. And our industry is increasingly using common data environments as a sharing platform. And all those team members and project partners use the data to analyze and coordinate, and so with their own BIM work. And I always say BIM is a demand-driven process. So everybody needs specific information in order to be able to execute their own work, and the other should be able to execute their work better. So during the project, multiple stakeholders are involved, and simulations that predict the behavior of a design are often performed in the late phase of the project. They require additional information, software expertise, or partners. And simulation results often to new insights that have an impact on the design and engineering. So designers and engineers would like to have this information as early as possible without having to involve costly and time-consuming outsourcing. So what we came up with was a BIM Bots concept, which provides an optimization for that situation. So a BIM Bot concept is based on the principle of microservice architecture, MSA. That's the opposite of the service-oriented architecture or a monolithic architecture.
Can you just describe briefly for the novice what is the microservice architecture? How does it differ from the monolithic?
So BIM bots are a form of microservices that conform to the BIM bot invocation specification and BIM bot capability specification. So you can find them on GitHub. In addition, we didn't put that in stone, we have found following aspects. There are four aspects. Conventional microservices, they prioritize response time and high availability. And for BIM bots, these are concerns as well. But BIM bots typically execute more complex operations. So that is one differentiation. So it may take a considerable amount of time to complete and may fail based on the input provided. Conventional microservices, again, typically operate on application-specific and lightweight data models. And we both know that BIM is not always a lightweight data model. So BIM bots may operate on complex engineering data models, such as IFC and GBXML. Conventional microservices are used within organizations. And BIM bots can be published and then used outside of that organization with their own identification and payment mechanisms. So it's not only internal. And finally, BIM bots offer a high degree of composability. Pronounced it correct, because typically both input and output, complete building model data set is accepted. BIM bots can be used to combine a form of higher order workflows. I think that's a differentiation.
Is it like a service that can be applied? Is it akin to like a platform-related service, or is this more like an IT infrastructure on which you can build BIM-related solutions?
Yes, I think the second. So it's
right.
So we thought that TNO should provide the base for development of BIM bots, but actually everybody can build a BIM bot if you use the correct specifications. And of course, internal at TNO, we need to have an experimental environment where we can develop our own BIM bots. And for that tool, we are developing an ecosystem of BIM bots. And of course, we can help the community with our expertise there.
So you said you're developing a whole ecosystem of these BIM bots. Can you give us examples of like the different types of BIM bots? Like what are the applications?
It's nice because it's a current discussion we have in our business unit. We have so many expertise and so many domains that in the end need to cover okay. We have so many domains in our business unit, and everybody wants to be able to do asset lifecycle information modeling in the end. And the holy grail is, of course, to have a digital twin or a predictive twin. So what we are developing at this moment is an ecosystem which is able to serve all different domains. And not everybody needs the same kind of data. Not everybody needs the same kind of data structure. So BIM bots can really help there. But you must know that a BIM bot is not a type of software. It's it's multiple small services run on this on a microservice architecture, and you can do whatever you want with the BIM bus architecture. What we developed, we did a prototype on the proof of concept for the Ministry of Internal Affairs to calculate impacts to the environment, so the environmental impact of a non-existing building based on BIM information, according to the rules and regulations, to prove that you fulfill the requirements to get your permits.
Right. So the BIM bots were used to develop the tools that analyze this. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And is it, you talked about open BIM. So I'm guessing that this is fully open source.
At this very moment, everything we have done so far is open source.
And what are your thoughts on, obviously, like the technology vendors are offering their own infrastructure to build BIM-related services. So what are your thoughts on partially open or, let's say, closed infrastructures? Do you foresee that they're going to take off?
Well, within the Building Smart community, there's now an open BIM API, open CDE API development going on, which is very good. So even big non-open software suppliers they have joined, and they are enthusiastic about this open CDE project. In the end, everybody will benefit from getting all the data that you need to do your job with. And like I said, it's a demand-driven process. So I foresee that data is not the unique selling point any longer for a software vendor. It will be the functionality, how to produce the data or how to handle the data. And they can have that as close as possible. It doesn't matter. As long as you work together in an open environment with open standards.
So you're saying the value will no longer be derived from how much data you have, but rather how you process it, insights or analysis that emanate from that data.
The amount of data is growing every day. So it's not about the data any longer. It's about how to use it.
Yeah. Interesting. And with your BIM bot development, your prototype, obviously the way I've understood it is that it requires, it's part and parcel with automation and requires machine-to-machine communication or interaction. Is that correct?
Yes. Like I said, it's a typical microservice architecture. Multiple small services run on a single platform, having access to the same data source. Well, Autodesk has something that is an example, like that's Design Automation API, they call it. And it allows users to perform tasks on data in a single database. And more of those online common data environments are creating the ability for external developers to deploy their own plugins. And you can describe that all as microservices within a single platform. And that is of course the machine-to-machine interaction. What will happen if we completely remove the user? But I think at this very moment it's good that machine-to-machine interaction.
Let's talk about it. Does it actually entail a future vision of a fully autonomous system that no longer requires human to computer interaction?
Okay, well, digitalization obliges you to write down exactly what you want. And that is sometimes very confronting. So with complete machine-to-machine, you lose flexibility because people are adaptive, And the other thing is that computers can also make mistakes. They make them faster than people, And when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. So I think in the end, machine to machine will provide a lot of help to fulfill our jobs, but we really need user interaction and anticipation.
If we are actually looking for improvement in efficiency or agility, that this comes together with automation, and we shouldn't expect anything else.
Yeah, well, that's one way to look at it. I disagree slightly. I think we had a nice discussion in Tallinn, I think half a year ago, before the whole Corona thing. And we discussed this a little bit as well. And what I think is that automation at this moment is algorithms. And algorithms are made by humans, biased humans. But I think that it's still a human interpretation of automation. Yeah. As long as we don't have full artificial intelligence, it will be, in the end, it will be human decisions that are made and not the computer. So
yes, unless we're relying on machine learning based algorithms, or you're saying we're still relying on human interpretations.
Machine learned algorithms, it's still made by humans, So Correct. The interpretation is still an algorithm made by a biased human being.
Yeah.
So, it's more philosophical, maybe.
True. And so one question was, do BIM bots currently use any machine learning, or do they follow rule-based system or algorithms?
I think it's hybrid. In the example that I gave about the environmental impact, that's a hybrid system. And you cannot say that a BIM bot is machine to machine or rule-based, because BIM bots is more the structure. So it can be anything. It says nothing about the BIM bot's intelligence itself. And I had a discussion with my colleague, and he says, well, take a look at Unix, if you remember Unix. They say smaller is better, and multiple small programs can link to each other, and the output of one is the input of the other. And he said one very nice thing as well. He even put it on a sign in his somewhere in his house. He said the highest degree of flexibility is the smallest interface. We don't have to worry about all the other processes that are involved because it's microservice. We only have to focus on the input we get and the output we get, the output we serve.
Yeah.
So BIMBots is not really it's not really about machine learning, but it's structure.
But microservices also very much relate to obviously a business model or a business structure. Is the intention with BIMBots to create obviously a service that its users pay for? Because it is a segment of a business model transformation, even for technology providers.
I would say yes. There is no such thing as one size fits all or one software fits all. So if you have small microservices that can do the job really fast and accurate, and you rely on the outcome that you're willing to pay for it, then of course you can make a nice business model around it. But that's not the case of our organization, of course, because we don't offer really commercial software. But I expect that the market will take this opportunity and will develop microservices based on BIMBots.
And its current applications, you said you used it for planning and building regs checks. What other applications have you used BIM bots on?
We made one prototype for a limestone company. And actually, we are discussing this with some other construction material suppliers now here in the Netherlands as well. We want to have more information in the beginning of a project. And construction material supplier wants to add their value in that early phase as well. So what they need is input from a designer. What we developed was a BIM bot that extracted. We developed a BIM bot that could extract all the limestone from a BIM model, replace that with the actual limestones that are.
What you're saying is you took the supply chain's own BIM content and were able to merge that with the original design model. Okay. Is that correct?
Okay. We extracted all the information from the BIM, all the materials that they could deliver, and we optimized that fully automatically, and we sent only the deltas back to the designer, so the designer knew exactly how many limestones they needed, where to cut those limestones, and even where to put the windows and the door openings in a more efficient way. That was one thing.
Wow! And did that incur any changes to their detailed drawings, which they have to do as well, very meticulously?
What happens there is that normally you need several people to find out if the BIM is made according to the right delivery specifications. Then you should extract it, then you should draw them by hand in Revit or Archicad or Tekla or whatever other software. Then you have to export it in IFC. And that's a time-consuming process. And we eliminated that complete process. So we automated that for them. And that is really, really beneficial. And actually, we are speaking now with some major European material suppliers to see what we can offer them as well.
I mean, I can already see a useful application with the platforms that offer obviously all the BIM content from the different suppliers and manufacturers, which designers regularly use to download those products. And, this is such a reoccurring problem of having to use these standardized components that don't necessarily fit with their design. And they end up working with content that might be locked, and then they have to redraw, duplicate effort. So is this something potentially that you could link with one of those BIM marketplaces where you have BIM content?
I hope that they will pick it up, and we can always help them. But we don't want to be in their position. We just develop the concept technology and the basics, and then what we do is we help the economy to disrupt and to go further. Of course, there are many very good markets available already. Well, like you say, I foresee that they would implement such a service as well.
What do you foresee could be done to help connect value across the entire life cycle of the building?
Well, our industry, the construction industry, will benefit from digitization when interaction between user and computer will be taken over for a lot of percentage between computers, like you say, the machine to machine. And we see that in other areas as well. So generative design, parametric design, that's quite similar to these developments. But we need to have them tested automatically against construction rules and regulations. So I think that machine learning and artificial intelligence will be applied there to interpret the data coming from the generative and parametric design.
And are you guys working on any BIM bots in relation to generative design? And we touched upon this a little bit with Open BIM, but of course the industry, frequently debates about interoperability challenges. So could you perhaps shed some more light on how linked data has helped in this regard?
Yeah, this is a tricky one, I guess, because linked data, object type libraries and BIM, they have such, they have so much in common and so much not. It's sometimes seen as two different fields, but I think that linked data is very important. Semantics can help us to specify unambiguously, and we always use the FAIR principle. I think that the FAIR principle. It's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We say that data is liberated from the silos and then connected and reused. So that's accessible and findable. And then we make a contribution for smarter, more efficient management and maintenance systems. Linked data is used in asset lifecycle information management. And we think that is an important base for the deployment of artificial intelligence and digital twins. And that will, of course, lead to, a far-reaching digitalization of the sector. So I think it's really important that we have a semantic data structures. Yeah.
And you've briefly mentioned digital twins, so I have to ask, obviously, what is your view on digital twins? Is this another, marketing jargon, or do you think that there's an actual real feasibility of us trying to adopt some of the methods and techniques discussed in advanced manufacturing, that we try and apply those in the built environment?
Yeah, of course. It's marketing, but that's cool. It's good. But I think it's really important to have a digital twin of assets. I give you an example. We did a very nice project for our road authority, where a steel bridge is now monitored with acoustic sensors that listen, and those acoustic sensors are listening to the quality of the weld in the steel structure. And we are able to predict the maintenance of that bridge. We can do that because we combine all kinds of data and we build a real digital twin of that bridge. And what we are doing now is that we are doing the same, or we plan, and we hope that we can continue with that project. We can do that with all the other bridges that are on the same in the same area. So we can predict the network of bridges and how they will behave and when the maintenance is planned. Digital twins is nice, and within within building smart, digital twins is high on the priority list and is a real important topic. But within TNO, we are speaking more about predictive twins. So we're combining all kinds of information, real-time data from sensors, and of course, as a base, a BIM, link data, and other technologies too.
So has there been any, on your part at TNO, any research into how much would it cost to run a digital twin? And how do you convince at the board level that this is of value?
If you speak about a bridge, and it's really an important bridge, it's in the center of of one of the most important roads in the Netherlands. So I think the prediction of the maintenance is much, it's a multiplier of the cost of the digital twin.
And now, because of the current pandemic, Obviously, businesses are having to restructure, rethink how much they're spending. But many are saying that the current pandemic is going to push people to digitize even more. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
No, totally agree. We, in Holland, the Netherlands, we have an intelligent lockdown, as we call it. And it's eased now a little bit. Yeah? But we have an attention for the future. And we still have the banking crisis in the back of our minds. And we want to prevent at all costs that the economy will fall apart for a very, very long time. And what TNO did is we looked at what Germany did 2008. Germany increased the national investment in research and innovations every year since then. So it took us, I think, 10 years to emerge from the crisis. But the Germans, they had their golden decade and rapid economic growth. So I think 2 weeks ago, TNO proposed a position paper, and it's called The Economy After the Corona Vaccine. And they say the only way to get out of this crisis is to innovate. I don't see another option, actually.
So there is, I mean, obviously discussions then on increasing the investment into R&D as a result of the current pandemic, or in a post-pandemic world, let's say.
We need to do more research on digitalization.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what about industry then? Do you foresee that R&D is one area, but then in terms of the private companies, the contractors, do you foresee that this will sort of slow down the levels of investment for them?
No, I don't think so. Well, I saw someone in a talk show saying this week, so I'm not sure, I have to do this by heart, but for every euro they invest, the industry invests in R&D, they will get 3 or 7 or so, at least a multiplier back. So I think that the industry is really capable of adapting R&D. I see it happening all the time. In the past 2-3 months, everybody is investing in new technologies, in digitalization, and maybe they don't see this as R&D, but what we did for the past months is to work in a non-contact way. That's a form of research and development as well, at least for yourself. Yeah,
experimentation.
Well,
and finally then, for aspiring researchers that want to make an impact or change within the built environment, in your line of work and from what you've seen to date, are there any pieces of wisdom or insight that you would want to give to young researchers?
Learn Python. Well, I don't think we can do without good innovations. The different core technologies, as we have defined them, linked data, artificial intelligence, digital twins, and of course, BIM bots, are things we didn't think of years ago, but now they're making the difference.
Thank you for tuning in to listen to Beyond BIM podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more from our latest episodes, then you can visit Beyond BIM, which is available on SoundCloud and iTunes and all the other major podcast providers.